Military ties between the Philippines and the U.S. date back decades, and the U.S. operated bases in the Philippines until 1991. EDCA explicitly prohibits the U.S. from establishing a permanent military presence or bases in the Philippines, but how will the American presence in the country help counter its external threats? China has issued a statement saying EDCA is putting the Philippines in a serious harm, but does China have the reason to be angry with EDCA? Welcome to the 6th episode of Wow, But How? In January 2016, the Supreme Court upheld the constitutionality of the Enhanced Defense Cooperation Agreement, EDCA, between the U.S. and the Philippines. This was the biggest challenge to the military agreement between the two allies. The United States welcomed the decision, saying it would increase the two countries' military cooperation in maritime security and domain awareness, as well as the mutual defense that actively contributes to maintaining regional stability. Critics of the agreement think otherwise, arguing that the agreement makes the country a launching pad for U.S. military intervention and transforms it into a U.S. military outpost. In this episode, we will go through the details of Enhanced Defense Cooperation Agreement between the U.S. and the Philippines and see why it angers China. With the territorial dispute with China in the West Philippine Sea, and China's apparent plan to invade Taiwan, EDCA and U.S. military presence have generated mixed concerns in the country. But what does EDCA really plan to accomplish? EDCA supports the U.S. campaign for freedom of navigation and freedom of the commons in regional waters. As the United States strengthens its influence in the Asia-Pacific region, there is a need to preposition men and material in friendly countries. The U.S. also stressed its intention to fly, sail, and operate wherever international law allows. This includes the South China Sea, which the Philippines had territorial disputes with China. The U.S. had accused China of militarizing the South China Sea by building artificial islands and grabbing islands and intimidating Filipinos in the territorial waters of the West Philippine Sea. The decision of the Philippines to allow more U.S. bases in the country is seen as a move to counter the emergence of regional challenges. This, however, has angered China, which says outsiders must not join in the boiling conflict between countries in the region around the South China Sea. Is China correct for saying that allowing the U.S. inside the Philippines is putting the country in a serious harm? There are 4 types of activities the U.S. may undertake within Philippine territory, in relation to its access and use of agreed locations. These are security cooperation exercises, joint and combined training, humanitarian assistance and disaster relief, other activities as agreed upon between the U.S. and the Philippines. Let's sneak a peek on what these activities really mean. Security cooperation exercises. EDCA, under the Mutual Defense Treaty, stipulates that both the U.S. and the Philippines will take part in a series of security cooperation exercises. This is not, however, limited to any other forms of war games and war simulations. This includes military sales and military education and training. EDCA eases the sale of weapons by the U.S. to the Philippines. The two countries will also share their best practices to mutually enhance each other's capabilities. Is China angry because the Philippines is slowly arming itself? Or is it because the U.S. can observe their activities up close? Joint and combined training. What is the difference of the two? Under the joint training, Filipino and American troops from 2 or more military services, the Army, Navy, Air Force, etc., will train together. While in the combined training, Filipino and American troops will train with the forces of 2 or more nations. With EDCA opening its doors for other allies to join, is the US-Philippine war games becoming a bigger threat to China? Humanitarian assistance and disaster relief. Not all EDCA sites would be used as an American military base. Some would be used as storage and warehouse facilities for military logistics. These facilities would serve as a base for our humanitarian assistance and disaster relief operations. The Philippines experiences at least 20 typhoons annually. It is also in the Ring of Fire and is shaken by earthquakes quite on a regular basis. Is the military outposts being dressed up as disaster readiness sites? Is the semi-permanent humanitarian movement of the U.S. limits China's influence in the Philippines? Other activities as agreed upon between the U.S. and the Philippines. EDCA allows the U.S. to build exercise-related structures in the Philippines and maintain intelligence security cooperation. It would also allow the two armed forces to share information operations and command and control programs. Should there be any circumstance that needs to be addressed by the Allies, EDCA gives leeway for both armed forces to immediately devise a response. Is this open-ended type of activities enable the US to make operations for their interest beyond the public eye? Are activities under this type beneficial for the Philippines? Or, are activities actually intended to spy on China? For about a decade, from 2002 to 2012, the alliance was almost wholly focused on the counterterrorism mission in the southern Philippines. But then China seized control of Scarborough Shoal, a reef, and historic Filipino fishing ground, with a few rocks above water at high tide. It had been administered by Manila for decades. China's continued bullying and threats in the decade since have forged a strategic consensus in Manila that the Philippines faces an external threat after all, and one that is growing in intensity. The future of the alliance has hinged on whether the United States would commit to helping defend against it, and whether the Philippines would take the necessary, costly, and potentially risky steps to make that possible. Do Filipinos support EDCA? A recent social weather station survey showed at least 7 out of 10 Filipinos support measures to strengthen the country's defense capabilities and that the Philippines may ask its partners in achieving this objective. They believe that through EDCA, the Philippines will cooperate with its defense treaty ally in further strengthening their respective individual and collective defense capabilities. The Philippines is strategically positioned east of the South China Sea, a thoroughfare for roughly 30% of global maritime trade. The Philippines is currently undertaking an ambitious 15-year military modernization program, which will continue through 2027. Separated into 3 phases, Horizon 1, 2, and 3, this program is projected to cost over $40 billion and aims to address long-standing shortfalls in the Philippines' defense capabilities.